Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, namaskar to all of you. Should we start?
Yes, sir.
Everybody. Okay. So, yesterday we stopped, day before yesterday, with the crucial boon that our friend Nachiketas wants to know. Crucial boon. Now, you may be familiar with Nachiketas, very mischievous boy. So, that's why I said our friend, okay, like us. So, this Nachiketas, he asked two questions which were easily answered by the Lord of Death, Yama. He said, now ask the third boon. So, he asked the third. So, we did the boon yesterday. The boon is, there is this doubt. Yeyam prete vichiksa manushye astiti ekanayam astiti chaike etad vidyam manushishtas tvayaham varanam esha varastritiyaha. Of the three boons, I asked this. What is that I ask? There is this doubt. Nachiketas is asking Yama. In regard to a person who has departed, who is left, departed means who has left the body or died or whatever. Some hold that he is, even after the body is gone. Some say he is or she is who has left. Some that he is not, is finished, like clockwork mechanism. The clock has stopped and everything is over. Some say like, he doesn't say clock here, I am just saying, giving you an example. I would be instructed by thee, by you in this knowledge. Tell me actually, is there someone after death or does death end everything? This is the third boon. Basically, Nachiketas wants to know if there is something by which he can remain deathless. So, he wants to know if there is something like that, and the Lord of Death knows the best. This is the third. Isha Varastritiyaha. This is the third boon that I ask. Now, you will see a very interesting factor here. Yama, the Lord of Death, tries to avoid answering this question. It looks like he is avoiding, but apparently as you read further, you see that he is testing Nachiketas to see if he is really serious, this fellow. Should we initiate him into these mysteries? Is he really serious about inquiring? Because otherwise, the question we are dealing with requires full energy, absolute application with no other interest. Don't include that with your studies in the IIT, okay, that you need. But you need full attention with no other distraction, with no other ambition, with no other desire. Only such a one-pointed attention can find out the truth about this matter. So, Yama is asking him, look, ask me any other question if you like. You leave me alone. Don't ask me. Can you set me free of this question, this boon? Because anyway, he has promised I will give you all the three boons. Release me from this promise. It's interesting. So, suppose people come to me and say, please, we have been waiting for a long time. Teach us how this Kriya Yoga. If I was in Yama's position, I would have tested them through and through before giving, but can't do it. So I give and nobody practices. I am not talking about some people. So now when we have a Kriya Yoga session, I see some people already taken Kriya sitting there, so I say, Here there are people who have not taken Kriya. Behind you are people who have taken Kriya but not practicing it for many years. So, you know what? So, this is like saying, I have studied all the theory but I won't go into the lab. Because I don't know, I can't go. This doesn't work. What we are dealing with is something very personal, very real. It can be understood and experienced only through one pointed attention. So Yama is trying to put Nachiketas off, not because he doesn't know the answer, because he wants to, is this guy really serious? Now what will happen? You come to me and you say, please explain to me about what? Heaven or I don't know about hell, I never visited, but you come to me and you say, teach me about this, it's most important for me, please, holding me, my hands or feet as whatever. And I say, look, now this is very difficult to do. I have an alternate suggestion for you. Yeah, there's a beautiful S-class Maybach Mercedes standing in the backyard. I don't have here, I'm just saying example. And here are the keys. You take it and go. Don't ask me this question. This is not good. What would be the normal reaction? Maybach. Thank you, sir. Take the key and vanish with the Mercedes. The Mercedes is gone, but the guy hasn't found the answer what he is looking for. So, when he asks this question, after death, does something exist? Why does Nachiketa ask this question? Because he wants to know if he can be free of death. I mean, not in the physical sense. Is there something beyond our body's death that survives? If it is so, how do I get there? What is it that I need to do? This is why he is asking this. And Yama wants to be 100% sure he is not wasting his time and energy trying to tell him about this. And that he would be dedicated to find out if given the method or the guidance. So he says all this, but you see how Yama tries to dissuade Nachiketas from. Yama said, Dever atrapi vichikitsitam puraha nahi svijneyam manuresha dharmaha anyam varam nachiketo vrinishva mama parokshir atima srijainam. Yama said, even the gods of old, say gods means Indra and all these gods, had doubt on this point. It is not easy to understand, I am warning you. So subtle is this truth. Therefore, choose another boon, O Nachiketas. Do not press me. Release me from this. Because he has promised, can you please release me? I can't. And this is what we are dealing with today. So please release me from this. I'm not even Yama, but I am trying to work something out. Okay. We are trying to. So what does Nachiketas say? Nachiketas doesn't want any Mercedes. He says, if even the gods had doubts, Dever atrapi vichikitsitam kila. Indeed, to this so death, you are saying it is not so easy to understand. Now, which other teacher should I go to other than you, death itself? Where can I get it otherwise? So no other boon is comparable to this. I want only this. It says even if gods had doubts, that means it is so important. And you say that it is not easy to understood. You instruct me. Because which other teacher can I find who is the Lord of Death himself, who can explain what is death and what is beyond? I don't want any other boon. No keys to the S class. No. This is the boon I want. So Yama says to Nachiketas, Shatayushaha putra potran vrinishva bahun pashun hasti hiranmayam ashwan hiranyam ashwan bhumer mahad ayatanam vrinishva swayam cha jiva sharado yavat ichhasi. Choose sons and grandsons. Anything I can give you. When you have a son, then after you want to have a grandson and so on. Not me, I'm just saying. So, choose sons and grandsons that shall live 100 years. Will carry on your tradition for 100 years. Cattle in plenty, elephants, gold and horses. Choose vast expanses of land and life for you for as many years as you want to live. Don't ask me about death. You want to live long, live. Ask any of these interesting things which anybody would take at a simple offer. Sons and grandsons that shall live 100 years, cattle in plenty, elephants, gold and horses, vast tracts of land, and for you to live for as many years as you want. Ask. Yatat tulyam yadi manase varam vrinishva vittam chirajivikam cha. Yama says, if you think that the boon that I give you now, wealth and long life, prosper then on this vast earth. Huh? Kamanam tva kama bhajam karomi. I will make you the enjoyer of all thy desires. See, I have given you a big offering. Take it. Sign the documents now. Free me from this. I have told you all that I can give you. Enjoy it. I will make you the enjoyer of all this. Don't ask me this question. Whatever desires are hard to attain in this world of mortals, ask for all those desires at thy will. There are not only that, Yama also offers beautiful maidens and chariots for him. This Yama is a tricky guy. He says he offers him an entire cabaret. Take all, but leave me. Don't ask me for that. He says, Ye ye kama durlabha martyaloke sarvan kamam chandata prarthayasva ima ramaha charatha chaturyaha na hridashra lambaniya manushye abhirmat pratabhi परिचारस्व नचिकेतो मरणम मनुप्राक्षिः. Maranam manu prakshihi. Don't ask me only about death. About this question, leave me alone. Whatever desires are hard to attain in this world of mortals, ask for all those desires at thy will. Here are noble maidens. Where are the ladies? Dressed or undressed. With chariots and musical instruments, dancing away. The like of them cannot be won by normal human beings. Get served by these. I will give them all to you, O Nachiketas. But please don't ask me about this death. How many would succumb to this? Has to be seen, right? Nachiketa says, Swabhavo martyasya yad antakaitat sarvendriyanam jarayanti tejaha api sarvam jivitam alpam eva tvaiva vahastava nritya gite. Keep your nirtya and gita for yourself. I don't want. Take your dance and music for yourself. I don't want any dance and music. Then these are all transient desires that you're talking of. They wear out. Oh Yama, they wear out the vigor of all the senses that we have. All life anyway is so brief, so small. So keep your chariots and your dancing girls and your song and dance with you. I don't want any of these things. Tell me about this death. How to get over it. What do I do? This is one nice statement here. Nachiketas makes. What is that? These desires, first of all, they are transient. And if you keep enjoying, your senses become weak after a while. And on top of all that, life is so brief. Why would I get caught up in this? Can I understand what is beyond? Can I find out how to conquer this death, which you are? Nachiketa says to Yama, human beings are not contented with wealth. Hmm? Shall we digress a little bit? Tell you a story? Maybe too dry, huh? No, because you'll understand more.
Sure, sure.
Okay. So there was this guy, this person, who was the one of the kings of a local kingdom in the Punjab somewhere. So those days India was ruled by the Mughals. So the Mughal emperor sat in Delhi. And his name was at that time the last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar. He was during the Indian mutiny, he was the emperor of Delhi, quite old, but mostly a kind of a mystic person who has written beautiful songs, and Jo Kuch Hai So Tu Hi Hai was written by Jafar. Signed as Jafar is Jafar Shah. um, Swami Vivekananda was very fond of this. I also have sung somewhere, Jo Kuch Hai So Tu Hi Hai. Anyway, so he was the emperor at that time. And this Raja from the kingdom near Punjab, he wanted to expand his territory. So he came. In those days, you can't expand your territory without asking the emperor in Delhi. So he came to Delhi, and of course, he must have been made to wait for a while, and then ushered into the presence of Bahadur Shah Zafar. So he said, "Sir, I want to expand my territory. I'm a small kingdom." So he said, So first I seek permission from you. Two, I seek help from you. Give me some good general and an army also added to my army." The Mughal king said, emperor said, "Listen, I can give you a general. I'll give you one of my Pathan generals here. Tomorrow, if he occupies the territory and then says that it is mine, what will you do? Okay, leave it there. Second, you want to expand your territory. Why? What is the reason you want to expand?" So he was staying in the Red Fort. So he called him, "Come here. Look out of the window of the Red Fort. Down there under a tree. There's a fakir sitting there. You know what's a fakir? Ah, you know, somebody translates as a holy beggar or what. There's a fakir sitting there. under a tree. Look at him. So the king went and peeped out of the window and saw the fakir sitting there. The fakir was only wearing rags, and he had a begging bowl kept near him. And his hand was raised up, and there was an ecstatic smile on his face. He was smiling to himself. So the king said to this Maharaja, the Mughal king said to this Maharaja, "You looked out, right? You saw the face of that fakir. He has nothing. He has only a begging bowl and rags." So the smile on his face, the ecstatic smile. Yes. Now look at my face. I am supposed to be the emperor of Delhi. What is my expression? Morose and happy. Said, think for yourself. Who is happier? This fakir or the emperor who lives in Delhi? Who is happy? You'll see very serious faces of all emperors who live in Delhi. Believe me. Hardly you'll see a smile. So, you know what to do next. So, he said, you look at this. Then you decide. You go home now, think about what I said. If you still feel that you want to expand your territory, come back to me. I'll give you permission. So the story goes that the king went away. And then he never returned. Nobody knows where he went. That kingdom found that for many years the ruler didn't come back. So the younger brother took over and became the king. Then the younger brother, who was the king, decided to go on a pilgrimage. You know, kings go to Badri, Kedar, all these places, Char Dham. So he decided to go on a pilgrimage. So while he reached Rishikesh, which is the foothills from where to go, some people told him, "You're going on such a serious pilgrimage and we don't know how things are." You know, recently many people died in Kedar, Badri. Recently. So imagine those days when there were no roads, no helicopters, no nothing. So you're going, it's dangerous. So why don't you take blessings of a great saint or something and go? Then this man said, "But where is a great saint?" He said, "If you go up to Lakshman Jhula, in a cave, there is a great saint, a great yogi. We think he's a great saint. You go to him and ask for blessings and then proceed with your retinue." So the king and the retinue went to uh, Lakshman Jhula. There in the cave, they saw a very tall uh, yogi sitting, hair all tied up and eyes closed and steady. So the present king and his retinue went and bowed down before him and said, "Maharaj, we are going for a pilgrimage. Please bless us." So first the voice came from the closed-eyed yogi. It said, "Tathastu, so be it." The king heard the voice and he said, "Oh my God, this is my brother's voice, who had vanished long ago." Hmm? Then the eyes opened and they saw those eyes, sharp eyes, which at one time said, "Be off with his head," and the head would be off once upon a time. "This is my brother." So he said, "Brother, I took over the kingdom because you're not there, but your seat is still there. Please come back. Rule the kingdom. Become the Maharaja." So the yogi asked him, "When you came in, you called me something. What did you call me?" I said, "Maharaj." "Ah, you called me Maharaj. I am the Maharaj of the universe now. I don't want anything to do with your little kingdom in Punjab." Hmm. So Nachiket doesn't want that little kingdom in Punjab. He wants to be the Maharaja of the universe. He wants to be free of death. He wants to know what is beyond, which is not so easy. So he says to Yama, "You keep all these things." Man is not contented with wealth. Shall we enjoy wealth, having seen that you are there standing before us, O death? How can we enjoy when death is standing before us? We know there is death anyway coming. Till now, when we said death is always standing with us, people used to think it's a joke. COVID came, nobody understood it's a fact. Here today and gone tomorrow. Nobody has beaten that. So, man is not contented with wealth. Shall we enjoy wealth when we have seen you death standing before you? As long as you are in power, O Lord of Death, how long can we live? So, that alone is still my chosen boon. Please answer this question. I don't want anything else. Having approached the undecaying immortal, what decaying mortal on this earth below will meditate on the pleasures of beauty and love or delight in a overlong life, having known that death is before us, having seen this, having approached that which is beyond. Now, the king of death must be beyond death. So, having approached the undecaying immortality that you are, what mortal on this earth would want to enjoy these pleasures which are so transitory? And who will delight in an overlong life? You know what is overlong life generally? Luckily, at 72, I'm healthy, I'm okay. But what if tomorrow something happens and then you're in the wheelchair? Like, who enjoys this kind of life? I think we should pull out all life systems and let the soul go, and it's terrible. So Nachiketa says, so having seen immortal death standing before me, which never dies, like change, the only changeless thing on earth is change. The only deathless thing on earth is death. Always there. Not in a bad way, I mean, it's a fact. So having seen this, who wants to enjoy this world? Who wants all the things that you offered me? Who will delight in an overlong life? So, yasmin idam vichikshanti mrityo yat samparaye mahati bruhi nastat yoyam varo gudham anupravishto nanyam tasman nachiketa pranite. Tell us that about which they doubt. O death, the thing which everybody has a doubt, tell us about that. What there is in that great passing on. He doesn't say passing away, passing on. What there is in this great passing on. This boon which penetrates the mystery, I don't want to choose. I, Nachiketas, don't want to choose anything else. Tell me that. Now, Yama is faced with the situation. He can't help, he can't move. He has promised a boon. He has to answer the question. This guy is so serious, even a small boy. He doesn't want anything else. So Yama decides, okay, let's teach this fellow. He's what in the ancient Sanskrit word says, apta, one who deserves to be taught. So let's teach him. Now Yama goes about, see, we are talking about something so intangible. That's difficult to say it is this. So Yama adopts the Vedantic posture of not this, not this. See, something which our senses cannot reach, you cannot point out and say, here, it is this. Instead of that, the process that Yama takes, which is like the Vedantic process, is to say that the ultimate thing that you seek is not this, it is not this, it is not this. Finally, when no more reduction is possible, it remains. Hmm? It doesn't mean no, no. It means not this. Uh, ne iti, not this. Ne iti. So, Yama goes about trying to teach about something which cannot be put in a test tube, which cannot be held in any instrument, by going about explaining how to get there. How to get there. So, Yama said, there are two things, says Yama. One is good, the other is pleasant. On this earth, Yama says, listen, Nachiket, you have to approach this truth, first understand this. That on this earth there are two things which face us always. One is good, the other is pleasant, which means the pleasant may not always be good, while the good can be pleasant also, sometimes painful also. Hmm? So he says, different is the good and different indeed is the pleasant. Look, everybody after getting tired in the night, they go and have a smoke somewhere near Nakalini or wherever. Now it is pleasant, very pleasant, but it is not good for your lungs in the long run. So decide, says Yama, between good and the pleasant. So different is the good and different indeed is the pleasant. These two, good and the pleasant, with different purposes, bind a man. Man is bound by the good and by the pleasant, both. Of these two, it is well for him who takes hold of the good, but he who chooses the pleasant fails in his aim. So he says you have to first choose between what is good and what is pleasant. Those who choose only the pleasant, good also sometimes is quite pleasant. Only the pleasant, they generally fail to find the aim, which is to find the truth. But those who choose the good, no matter what problems or what difficulties or what pain is involved, they find the aim. They reach where they need to go. Now, both the good and the pleasant approach a person. Both. In this world, you will see that everywhere. Both good and pleasant approach a person. The wise one, so this is called Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyas is good and Preyas is pleasant. They approach a person. The wise one, Dhiro Abhiprayaso, the wise one chooses the good in preference to the pleasant. Others, for the sake of worldly well-being, prefer the pleasant. Which means, he says to Nachiketa, the subject which you're going into, Nachiketas, is something to do with your personal choices also. This is a hard path, it's a difficult path. It's a narrow bridge. It's a straight and narrow path. It's a dangerous bridge to cross. Somebody called it Chiratil Mustihin. It is a difficult bridge to cross. It's very thin. Now, if you need to cross this, you must learn to choose what is good and not get too caught up by what is pleasant. The wise man pondering over them, man is an expression, the wise human being pondering over them discriminates. The wise chooses the good in preference to the pleasant. Others, For the sake of worldly well-being, prefer the pleasant. Now, one thing we must understand, this subject under hand that which we are studying now is not to do with physical uh, objects. You can study the strength of material without any emotional or moral adjustment. No problem. But here you're studying yourself. And yourself is made up of various factors which has feelings, emotions, thoughts. So it's not like nobody has to be qualified to study how strong a metal is if he is qualified enough in physics. It has nothing to do with one's character. You can be whatever you want, but you can still study it. Here we are studying ourselves. Therefore, it's important about all these matters, whether it is good, what is present, because self. It's a living self. It's not a material object. It's not a padartha that you study. Which is why so much attention is given to one's personal life. Because without that, one cannot prepare oneself to understand this. Some, for the sake of worldly well-being, prefer the pleasant. But you, Nachiketas, says Yama, you have rejected, after examining, that which is pleasant, the desires that are pleasant. After examining them, you have rejected them. And what seems to be pleasing, you have rejected. Therefore, you have not taken the way of wealth, where many mortals sink to ruin. Many mortals sink to ruin because the only thing they're interested is in wealth. If that is the case, then you cannot study yourself as you are, because you are caught in that which is pleasant and which is may not be good, may or may not be good. You change yourself. So Yama says to Nachiketa, so Nachiketa, you, however, have rejected, after examining, the desires that are pleasant and seem to be pleasing. Seem to be pleasing, not really pleasing, seem on the surface to be pleasing. Because there is no greater happiness than, I'm not reading here, finding that which is beyond death, which is our immortal self. There is no happiness better than that. But we get waylaid by these temporal pleasures and get stuck out there. This is what he's trying to tell you. Not that you shouldn't enjoy your life, but what he means is when you do it, understand that this is temporary, because what you seek is permanent. So therefore, you have not taken to that way which normally people take, which means if I have lots of money, I will be happy. People usually say, if you are smart, why aren't you rich? Everything is measured in the foot rule of wealth. So whether wealth is inner happiness or wealth is outer happiness, whether too many possessions make you happy, or are you happy even without any possession whatsoever, whether they are there or not. Because if you are dependent on that, it's quite possible at every time when the uh, financial situation goes down, one is unhappy. When it goes up, one is... So it's a up and down process. We're trying to find something that doesn't move or change whatever be the outward circumstances. And this is what the Upanishad is all about. Not economic theory, that is different. So, therefore, you have found this way. Then, widely apart, says Yama to Nachiketas, and leading to different ends, 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 divergent ends, are these: ignorance and what is known as wisdom. So, what is ignorance according to Yama? Is to mistake the transitory happiness to be happiness, to mistake the pleasant to be the good. And wisdom is to choose the good over the pleasant. Hmm? I know, Nachiketas, you are eager for wisdom. For all the desires that I offered you did not distract you from the path, from your research. I offered you many things, but didn't take you away from your research. Suppose you are researching in Delhi, in IIT, on something very serious, let's say. I don't know the subjects, what you do, but whatever. And then somebody comes from an Arab country or from the United States and says, you have a easier job to do, it's very pleasant, I'll give you 5 times your salary. Oh, you will take it naturally and generally. A few may say, no, 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 I have to find this. I'm doing my research here. I don't care what you give me. But I want, most people want, it'll go away. Research is over. Maybe somebody else will do it, but so, I mean, this is roughly, I'm trying to give a picture of what Yama is trying to tell you. So I offered you many. They did not distract you, neither dollars nor dirhams. They did not distract you. Then there is a beautiful statement in the 5th shloka that is coming up. Very interesting. You would have thought that the expression, the blind leading the blind, you know that was from Shakespeare. It means when fools lead the fools, they all fall into a pit. I mean, this is normally we studied it from Shakespeare, the blind leading the blind. But when was Shakespeare written? This is the Upanishads are at least 1,000 years old, let's say. Now I'm saying 1,000 because there are controversies. I would go back 2,000, but let's say 1,000. Now here is the same statement made. So I don't know whether the Upanishad said it first or Shakespeare said it first. We don't know. Definitely the Upanishads. Abiding in the midst of ignorance, avidyayam antare vartamanaha, swayam dhira panditam manyamanaha, wise in their own esteem. Abiding in the midst of ignorance, wise in their own esteem, thinking themselves to be learned. Dandramyam manaha variyanti mudha andhaine vaniyamana yatanda. Andha in Hindi also used. So abiding in the midst of ignorance, wise in their own self-esteem, thinking themselves to be learned, because you have studied a lot of scriptures, books, and so on and so forth. Fools treading a tortuous path go about like blind men, led by one who is himself blind. Huh? Yama says there are people who think they know everything because they have read a lot, they have gathered a lot of knowledge, and therefore they think they are ready to teach others. But they are fools because the truth they haven't understood. The good they do not know. Therefore, when they start guiding and leading, it's like the blind leading the blind. And the exact sentence is, Andheine vaniyamana yatandaha, like the blind leading the blind. I hope I'm not leading you that way. I hope. At least we realize it could be, so that's a good thing. Abiding in the midst of ignorance, wise in their own esteem, thinking themselves to be learned, fools treading a tortuous path, go about like blind men led by one who is himself blind. What lies beyond ordinary senses, shines not to the simple minded, careless, deluded by the glamour of wealth, thinking only this world exists and there is no other. They fall again and again in my power. Yama speaking. Yama speaking. He said they fall again and again in my power because they think that only this world exists, there's nothing beyond. And they're so enamored by the pleasant that they fall again and again in my power, because when they do that, I can easily grasp them and take them away. Very easy for me. But they do that continuously. Now we'll stop at the seventh shloka. Ravanayapi bahurbhir yo na labhya शृण्वन्तो अपि बाहवो बाहवो यम न विद्यु आश्चर्यो वक्ता कुशालो अस्य लब्धाः आश्चर्य ज्ञाता कुशालानुशिष्टः. He, listen carefully, he who cannot even be heard of by many, he who cannot even be heard of by many, whom many even hearing do not know, wondrous is he who can teach about him, and skillful is he who finds him, and wondrous is he who knows, even when instructed by the wise. Now Yama is trying to put a big thing to Nachiketas. He said, okay, I have said all this, now listen. He who cannot even be heard by many, he here means what he's searching for, the truth, that is which beyond death, that which will never die, which is immortal. He who cannot even be heard by most people because they don't want to hear it. I understand, that is very clear. They want to hear more about how to make money and so on. That's fine. Okay. Whom many even hearing do not understand, but people may be hearing about it, but they do not understand. So wondrous is he who can teach this, because teaching this itself is difficult. But skillful is he who finds him. For finding him also there should be a skill. And wondrous is he who knows, even when instructed by the wise. The wise might, not me, the wise might instruct you, but one still cannot find. It's a wonder if somebody really can grasp it, which means it is that which cannot be grasped by the senses. Another Upanishad says, Yan manasa namanyate, that which even the mind cannot reach. Now, if the mind cannot reach, that's our only instrument. What do we do? When we say mind, you can say brain. So what do we do? What they're trying to say is the ordinary mind, normal mind, usual mind, not normal, usual mind, which is caught up only in the three-dimensional way of thought. It cannot think beyond the conditionings which it is in. That mind cannot touch it. Which means you need to activate other systems other than ordinary thinking to be able to touch that which the Upanishads are talking about. Now here is where I think there is a great deal of potential for people who work or study in scientific labs and scientific studies to be able to introduce a scientific way of looking at these things. How? Today, brain scans are available to us. It was not available some time back, some years back. Today, with a brain scan, you can actually find out which parts of your brain are active by looking at the color of the picture or the scan. Right. My proposal is, maybe you will do it, you won't do it, I don't know. My proposal, I've been talking to various people, Indian Institute of Science, neurologists. My proposal is introduce a way of, because everybody wants experimental, at least some way you can head a little bit. Just find out bring a normal human being. Normal meaning who's not interested in philosophy, nothing. He just has his food. And bring a scientist. Bring a mathematician. Bring a yogi who genuinely goes into Samadhi. With the scans, you cannot duplicate Samadhi. You can't close your eyes and say, I'm in Samadhi. No. You can easily find out because there will be a difference in the scan. Something will be there happening. So get all these kind of people, man and woman, and scan their brains while they're in different activities. Scan the brain when there is deep meditation. Scan the mind when there is fear. So what you will begin to understand is in deep meditation, certain areas of the brain will be active. Now concentrate on those areas and find out how to sharpen those areas. Then this statement that Yama makes in the Upanishad, maybe allegorical, that even if you hear, you may not understand, may change. Because a new hearing instrument is being developed, which is not ordinary, which is not the ears. So there is scope, but one has to go about it carefully. I'm really serious about people meditating, people in various activities, listening to music. That's also a kind of meditation. At that time, scan the brain. Which parts are active? What is happening here? And you will see that in somebody else it is not happening. So there is a difference between this person and that. Something is going on. And maybe through techniques of meditation, you might be able to activate those parts which are not active. This is also possible. What is the proof? Scan again and check. I still don't know if scanning is good for the brain or not. I don't know. Please, I haven't, whether there is a radiation, I have no idea. I'm just, from what I know, I'm saying. If I say I know everything, then it's like the blind leading the blind. I'm just looking at the research. So now we would stop at this and we have some time for question answers. Let me before that say that we have come to seventh shloka in this part, where Yama says to Nachiketa, he who cannot even be heard by many, whom many even hearing do not know, wondrous is he who can teach, and skillful is he who finds him, and wondrous is he who knows even when instructed by the wise. I know it's little tough and dry and all that, but what to do? We have to go at it like this one. Yes, sir.
Would you like to take one question which we could not take day before yesterday from
Sure.
Professor Rahul Garg?
Yes.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so the question I wanted to ask is you talked about this Nachiketas Agni. And
Nachiketas?
Agni in the last
Agni,
line.
yes.
Yes.
Mm.
And you also said that it has to be protected. So the question is, how, I mean, yeah, so first question is, how does it get ignited? And secondly, what can be done or what is generally advisable to be able to protect it if it gets ignited? And could you answer it from the point of view of our students as well as the faculty who are in the family?
Sir, this particular question that you're asking is a technique question. It's about how. So now I think one has to take various precautions before one goes into actual practice. Because we are dealing with the psyche, right? So I don't want to go into it. Better to do it one-on-one in a personal way rather than make a general statement. Because if I do that, you might ignite the fire, but the fire may run out of control and then we won't be able to do anything online at least. So let me explain this. The Manipura, which is the center in the spine, which is near the navel, is the center of fire. It is associated with Agni Tattva. So there are various means, not various, there are some means by which this can be activated. Now, when this is activated, one of the things one feels is a little bit of heat in the system. So we should also know how to keep it under control. So what I'm trying to say is I cannot generally give a statement on this. Uh, the yogis of the monks of Tibet, do you know that there was a famous yogi in Tibet whose name was Milarepa? Now, Milarepa, the Tibetan meaning of the word Milarepa is cotton clad, one who wears only cotton clad. Now, this yogi is supposed to be the founder of the Kagyu order, which has survived till today. The Karmapa and the Tai Shitu Rinpoche, they belong to the Kagyu order. And their founder is Milarepa. I mean, after Milarepa, he was only sitting there in the caves. Now, Milarepa practiced certain breathing techniques and meditation techniques by which he could heat up his body in the caves there and sit without wearing woolen robes. Finally, it proceeded to such an extent, I think it is ridiculous, but where the yogis sitting tried to dry wet cloth on their backs. Some died of pneumonia, but some survived. So what I'm trying to say is that heat generation in the system, which they call tummo, the practice of tummo, it can be done, the fire can be ignited, but it has to be personal. The Bijakshara is Ram. So with that sound, Ram, and meditation on that center, the fire can be awakened. But this has to be very personal. Otherwise it will become the other Ram. You know what? Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like to read one of the interesting questions student has sent. There are many stories of kings who give up a lot in life and seek spiritual enlightenment. Example,
Yeah.
Buddha as a prince also left his palace.
Yes.
Even
Yes.
Ashtavakra was also a spiritual seeker, though being a king.
Yes.
Is there something?
Just a mistake I made. I meant
Yeah,
to say Janaka. I wrote Ashtavakra.
Janaka.
Janaka. Yeah.
Is there
Okay. So
something
what
in
is the
common? Yeah, is there something in common with these kind of stories? I heard a hypothesis that only once you have everything, you realize it is not useful, and then you seek spirituality. Is that true?
Partly yes, but because there are many who have everything but do not seek the truth. There are, see, lots of people who have everything, who is seeking the truth? But there are some rare souls who, having listened to that which is being said and which is difficult to understand, have grasped it. And then it's like the Buddha had enjoyed all the luxuries of the, it's not a common factor, that's what I'm trying to say. Enjoyed all the luxuries in life and then got fed up. It's also the case with Mahavira and so many other Tirthankaras. Some of them were born in royal families. They enjoyed their wealth, real royal families, not Tukada royal families. And they enjoyed their wealth and they were very happy, and then they gave up. Because they found it was temporary and immaterial. So they gave up. But everybody doesn't do that. So there has to be a special kind of mind which sees, enjoys, and gives up. People usually when they enjoy, they get so addicted to it, they will not move out of it. Especially the trappings of power, like a king. Yajnavalkya was a great rishi, but he was also a Raja rishi. He was a king and also a rishi, right? So there were at that time many other kings who did not think this way. So it is not to do with that as a common factor, but what you said is true that there are many cases that have happened that way. Yes, that I understand. And it is interesting to note that many of even the so-called avatars, which are, they've all been Kshatriyas and kings, including Rama. In fact, the Yoga Vasishta is a discussion between Rama and Vasishta. It's a top of the rung Vedantic text. Yes, sir. I think instead of talking now, we are going into the Brahman, I think, slowly. That's why there's more silence than talk. Huh? Mm.
Sir, I had a question that you talked about brain imaging. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to know, like, what are your views? Um, can brain imaging lead us anywhere close to understanding what consciousness is? Because I know,
Ah,
I think like brain imaging might be a partial information because that's a substrate of something more complex happening.
right. All I'm saying is, there are a section of people who want something in their hands to work with, to go beyond also. So in such cases, this kind of an experimentation, I'm not saying that brain imaging and scans will lead to the truth. I'm saying it can give some experimental, what I can say, inputs, which may be useful in tabulating these things and figuring out perhaps there is something beyond. I'm not saying brain imaging or scanning can lead you to the truth. This is not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying today we are equipped with this so that at all stages of the mind, you can take a scan. And if you compare the scans, you can actually realize that there are different states of mind. When it happens, there are changes happening in the brain. This is something to note. Why I'm saying this? The whole process of meditative practice and yoga and so on is to bring about some change in the brain so that those parts which are normally not functioning will begin to function so that you can understand that which is beyond ordinary thought. So that is all I'm saying. I'm not saying that's a way to find the truth. Now, I want to say something else. See, there is one big thing going on, which is if somebody has a problem like depression, for instance, or obsessive compulsion, or bipolar, Go to a psychiatrist. I'm not saying psychiatrists are very useful. So psychiatrist studies the person, but the only tool that the psychiatrist has as of now is to prescribe certain medicines which will bring about a balance. Certain medicines, medicine means chemicals, which will bring about the balance as much as they can. It also, most of them have a very deep sedative effect, which sedates the brain and calms down and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm saying that along with that, if we can also combine the brain scan, because it has been found that most disorders, psychiatric disorders, have their origin in neurological changes. So, if we can figure that out, it may be useful for the psychiatrist to work on it. I'll give you an example. There was a young man who was till the age of 7 or 8 a very nice boy, a very good fellow. And then suddenly he started to feel very depressed. He used to draw pictures of somebody hanging and he became very aggressive. So the psychiatrist naturally gave him medicines to calm down and so on. Until it occurred to one of his uncles, who was a neurologist, to take a brain scan. When they took a brain scan, they found that there was a little tumor developing at the back in one section, which was pressing those parts which makes the mind less active. Depression, anger, aggression, that part of the brain, there was a little tumor. Luckily, it was not very serious. So they did the surgery. I am of the opinion that you should not actually do anything invasive unless it is necessary. I agree. Once that was removed, the boy could do without any drugs or psychiatric interventions. But that was done in cooperation with the psychiatrist and the neurologist. So I'm saying, let these two schools not be opposing each other, but can we bring them together? I'm saying this from the place when Neha asked about scans. I'm not saying these scans can lead you to the truth. The scan can, on an experimental basis, figure out that your brain undergoes changes in different states of meditation. That much it can do. If that much is done, at least some people may get interested in it. This is what I'm trying to say, Neha.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
It's a good thing. Social sciences are today doing without any atmic content. So it's a good idea to go into this. So Atma, Buddhi, Ahamkara and Chitta. Right? These are the 4 words you use. They come from Sankhya. So first let's look at the word Chitta. Chitta is any thought that passes through. In fact, according to the Sankhya philosophy, when you say mind, it can only be a bundle of thoughts. You cannot have a concept of a mind without thought. Impossible. Even at least a single thought will be there. Without that, you cannot think of a mind. So according to them, the mind is basically a bundle of thoughts. It's not a separate entity. Now this separate entity also has a part. Now Chitta is general. Bundle of thoughts. Now in this bundle of thoughts, there is one thought which is prominent, which is Ahamkara. Now when you say Ahamkara, it's not a bad word. Ahamkara means the feeling that I exist. The ego. It is with this ego and Ahamkara that the Chitta works. Otherwise, it will be just a bundle of thoughts without any order whatsoever. But it has an order, which is the recognizer, the witness called Ahamkara. Now, Buddhi. Buddhi also is included in thoughts. You cannot think of Buddhi without thoughts. Now, Sankhya says when they define Buddhi, it means the first thought that makes me aware of my existence. That is Buddhi, not intelligence as we usually think. See, when I wake up after deep sleep, when I don't know where I was or what's happening, the first thought that occurs to my mind is I exist. It is based on the fact that I can see some other things. So therefore I must be existing to relate with them. Right? That realization, I exist, is buddhi. I'm talking about Sankhya, buddhi. Ahamkara is when that buddhi becomes a little more complicated, but it acquires a personality of its own and reacts with the collection of thoughts, which is the chitta, part of the chitta. Now, what is Atman? Now, Atma is actually Atma means the feeling of me, of I, not limited to I exist a as a limited human body. The very source of the feeling of I that the buddhi has comes from the Atman. So, according to Sankhya, Atma is the only part of this whole four terms which is not material, which is conscious. So, they make a distinction between consciousness and other things. That consciousness part is the Atman. Even buddhi, ahamkara and chitta are still not pure consciousness, they are still matter. Subtle, gross, subtle, and so on. Why they say that is because Sankhya says, the Sankhya and Yoga, Darsana, both say that the subtlest part of the food that you eat goes to form your chitta. So then it must be material. So the mind in Sankhya is material, it's not something out of. So therefore I am saying, perhaps when they say mind, it could in some way also mean the brain. Okay, so now we come to social sciences. Now therefore, this wonderful thing about this is that behavioral sciences are very important. You can change the working of the mind through changing your behavior. In fact, it has been known today that certain functions of the brain can be made to come back, or new pathways can be created through your actions and thoughts. One time they said it can't be done. Now it's understood that new pathways can be created. This is very important for social sciences. You know why? Because we know now that even pathways that did not exist may come back. Maybe they are there in rudimentary form. They may come back through practice. Practice means social ways of living, habits, how to behave. In fact, they say the greatest curative for a brain is gratitude. It's been tested. The brain creates a new pathway when gratitude appears. And gratitude is not a physical thing. It's a mind thing. So do a little more research on this. You can probably link this together. I'm so glad that you're thinking on these lines.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir,
These
Rishabh Singh
IIT
has.
sessions are very, very useful. I'm telling you. Afterwards, if with your permission, I'm going to put them out as book form. I will not use names, of course. I will say student 1, student 2, and so on. But I.
So
Yeah.
kind of you, sir. Sir,
Not
Rishabh
kind of
has
me, it's
sent.
useful for my research. One more
Rishabh
question only.
Singh?
One more
Okay,
question
okay, sure.
for today.
I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
uh, sir, there must be some form of perception that could, help us detect the good from the pleasant. That thing that you said, discrimination that Nachiketa does,
Right.
that Yama appreciates. So, like for smoking, you said that there is
I
that.
didn't say you shouldn't smoke.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what?
that, but like I mean, for some places, like it would be more intuitive than for others, right? For some
Yeah.
choices, it is very intuitive. Like, yeah, if you do this, then there is this pitfall. If you don't do this, then there is this pitfall. But for the tougher choices, like maybe I think this is very practical in real life that we are able to activate this perception. We are able to use this.
We must, because otherwise what will happen? All the time we look for only that which is pleasant. Now, many of the realities of life may not be so pleasant, right? They may be sometimes even painful. But think of the pain that a child undergoes along with the mother before it is born and pushed out of the womb. That pain was worth it. Right. So if I think I won't have any pain, I will only do what is pleasant, then you cannot be born into a new system. Just like the child in the womb. When the parents have lived together and decide to have a child, nobody thinks of this pain. In fact, the poor mother is the one who goes through it, not the father. But nobody. But it's a fact that before a new life is created, there is always some pain. In the same way, in this spiritual field, one needs to, if you look only at what is pleasant, then you may not be able to. That's all right in life, no problem. But anybody who is serious would begin to think about it. That's what I'm trying to say. You got what I say. Thank you.
Thank
So,
you,
sir, for today we will wind up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.